Hello wonderful people, Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Nawtystep channel, and today I'm going to be talking about the new Three-Way Collab EP from Chime, Franky Nuts and Oliverse, Tritone. This is the debut collaborative collection from three of modern dubstep's melodic powerhouses Chime, Franky Nuts and Oliverse. Not their first release outright, lest we forget the introduction to this trio arriving at the very beginning of last year. Their remix of Burning Up by MELODIC and Doctrine, in my opinion, showcasing the exact kind of energy and personality that you'd want to see in melodic bass music of that kind. An electrifying and exuberant cut that I find so good, it placed in my top 10 remixes of 2020. And so knowing how much I enjoyed that tune and how much of an impression it left on me, I think I'd be lying if I said I wasn't more excited for this EP than most other projects coming out. As you all know by now, I don't really get my hopes up for anything, and yeah, it's just never easy to make really memorable and impactful music. And even more so, you know, especially when it's three people working on the same material. But given the overly loud and one-dimensional dubstep climate of the last few years or so, the forming of this triumvirate feels almost like the pinnacle of the return of melodic creativity. The colour and flavour and life that dubstep has to offer slowly creeping back in midway through last year, after practically 3 years out almost entirely. And now we have three of the most renowned names in the melodic field joining forces. But again, before we get ahead of ourselves with the brilliance of Tritone as an idea, we do have to temper that by reminding ourselves that right here we have three people working on the same thing. As someone who used to be in a trio myself, producing with other people, yeah, it can be very tricky, you know, a constant thing of sacrificing ideas that you like because they might not, and vice versa, and trying to find a balance between your musical desires and whatnot, not only with one other person to you, but another person on top of that. And the potential confusion in direction that can result from that is definitely apparent in parts of this EP. The best example on that front for me would have to be the closer, Good For Nothing. Really enjoying the articulation and pronunciation of what feels like a very chime-driven introduction here, very sparky and bright with colour, and the snare here is also fantastic. And the main vocal sample here, joyous, defiant, liberated, and one of a few on the EP that are extremely effective. But the heaviness on this closer for me exhibits the bad side of having too many minds geared towards making the same thing. A clash of styles to the point where none of the three really shine through, and we don't get much of an idea at all. The dubsteppy first drop is fine, but I wouldn't go beyond that. You know, the attitude of it is there, but it's low on personality, and very much in need of a spark or snippet of magic to make it exciting. Feels like maybe it's stuck a bit and needs to be set free a bit more. And whilst I appreciate the idea of slowing down the BPM for the Halcy second drop, you know, quite a cheeky way to end the EP, not denying that. But again, it just needs more flair, it needs more individuality to it, and it feels a bit plain and like it needs more going on. Just before that, we have track 4, Wanna Love, which isn't quite as ineffective as Good For Nothing, but which still has moments to me which feel distinctly muddled and indecisive in their construction. The introduction here is also captivating, albeit in a different way altogether, with the vibrant and radiant instrumental, and the repetition of I Just Wanna Love making for a very pure and summery opening. It's just breathing life right into me. The drop following that build though, it feels to me like a mix of sounds where some of them are working and others are just out of place or out of time. The range of sounds and the general colour of the drop is there, but the flow maybe not so much. You know, the relationship between the different elements here feeling a little bit thrown together, a bit random. Yeah, again that thing for me of just feeling a little bit clunky, you know, not completely genuine. I did like the progression to that drop actually, you know, a little quick fire section and very alert. It's got Franky Nuts stamped all over it. And then the second drop here, if I'm trying to be as simple as possible, just feels like a rearrangement of the first, which in light of what I said about the first drop may not sound that great, but I think as a follow-up, it's actually really cleverly done, keeping some parts of the first drop the same and other moments changing up just a bit, which keeps the track unpredictable and the listener guessing. For me, encapsulated by the very abrupt ending that we get here, which is, yeah, good stuff. So yeah, the second half of Tritone, not particularly inspired or all that memorable in my opinion, so I think good that the first half kicks off the collection really well, and is generally for me, you know, far more representative of their massive potential as a trio. The dramatic, mood-setting introduction We Are Tritone, whilst I think could have been stretched out a lot more to create even more hype and make it even more epic, is a brilliant and necessary inclusion. For something as conceptually cool as Tritone, having that grand introduction, it just had to be a thing. Following that, Let Me Go is probably the tune here that I find the most comparable with their Burning Up remix, in terms of lots going on, but the vast majority of it composed in a very coherent way. Again, a lot of colour and force on show here, the range of sounds and the flow are pretty fucking fantastic across the board, and yeah, it's purposeful, enthralling, and euphoric. The progression to the first drop in particular, which I find completely thrilling, you know, a really good dynamic between all the different mini ideas we get within that drop. It's just really well done. Oh man, just them in full flow. The one drawback I have here is quite an important one. I think the initial impact of each release of heaviness isn't fully felt. It kind of dips and folds in on itself with those colourful wubs, which are nice sounds, you know, they're pleasant and nice on the ear, but not very good as an entrance point to heaviness. You know, at that moment, it's meant to be its most alarming and emphatic, and I think it falls a bit flat. Evidenced most by the second drop, which has a fake out and is far more effective. The first hit there is just super impactful. Not quite as on point here. That little dip for me doesn't quite work. The better one. You see what I mean? Like, a small difference like that can make a big difference when it comes to impact. But for a lot of it, Let Me Go is exactly what you want to hear from these three, and it sets up the rest of the EP well. Following that, we have track 2, On My Mind, which I would have to say is my pick of the 4 main tracks at the moment. Not as off-the-wall inventive as Let Me Go, but simply a better song overall in that it doesn't make as many missteps over its course. Feeling notably Oliverse-y, this one, you know, the big, fuzzy wub-wub sound that he's perfected over the years, and that main vocal sample is just vintage him. It's another powerful number, a lot of attitude here. You know, I don't think the melodic progression in the heaviness is all that memorable, but the good energy is just absolutely fucking coursing through it. Oh yeah! The second drop being a really astute switch up, solid melodic colour, really rich. Again, just bursting with feeling. I mentioned it briefly, but I really don't want to play down the vocal here. It's just gorgeous. Like, oh, beautiful. A couple other small points before I wrap up here. The transitioning on this EP is absolutely off the chart good. I noticed it in the second half of the collection in particular. The movement from introduction to build to drop to midsection. It was so on point that it completely took my attention. But, you know, on reflection, it happens across the whole thing. Also want to mention the midsections themselves on Tritone, you know, a couple of which are just fine, but also a couple which, again, completely grab the attention with how well they're put together. The ones in both On My Mind and Wanna Love are really defined and have got a great flow to them, and do a great job of working their respective tracks back up following the first drops. Oh yeah, and no obvious weak points for me on the percussion front, which is so rare, as we all know, and yeah, the foundation of every tune here is just top-notch. But ultimately, with any piece of music, collection, whatever, it's about memorable ideas that you want to hear again and again, and whilst a lot of the drops here, the focal points, are good, whether any of them are exceptional, I feel is another matter. Unsurprisingly, the range of sounds here, the overall colour of the music, the vocal samples, and the general sound quality, all superb, but you know, that stuff, that was what we were going to get from these three. But I'm not sure there's a track here that has flair, spontaneity, and consistency completely on lock in the same way that their Burning Up remix from last year does. The only other example of them we have, of course. That being said, I didn't actually enjoy that remix all that much on my first couple of listens. You know, it grew on me a lot over the course of 2020. And the exact same thing could happen here. You know, I think, to be honest, If it's any kind of music that's going to be a slow burner, it's this kind. The melodies and the sounds and the vocals, they're things that you kind of grow to appreciate more and more over time. They become catchier, they become more infectious, you become more used to them, and they become more difficult to put down. Again, do have to remember, this is 3 people making music together, certainly isn't easy, and I love that they actually went ahead and made the EP together. It's fucking cool. I think their different designs blend together well, and with most moments on the EP, you can hear at least 2 of them in there, if not all 3, which as a thing in itself is awesome. At the moment for me, it's the thing of enjoying that aspect, you know, the fact that they made the music and did the thing together more than the music itself. You know, there's nothing bad here. It's all varying levels of good, but when you're aware of the potential through what they've put out before, a standard is set, and I'm not sure that level is quite reached here. Not to say they can't get there again though, and it's the kind of ambitious project that bass music needs more of, and for that alone, that approach to creativity and music making, I'll be really looking forward to anything they might do as a 3 going forward. Now in terms of my favourite here, then I'm going to have to go for On My Mind. Not the most creative on the EP for me, but the best energy to it, which is thanks in large part to the vocal and the verve of the dubstep. And in terms of recommendations, if you enjoyed the EP, then each of these 3 individually, go check them out, their individual stuff, and of course their collective remix of Burning Up, which came out last year. But yeah, there we have it, my thoughts on the debut EP from Tritone, called Tritone. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. What did you guys make of the EP? Do you have a favourite of the 4? I'm sure you do. Be sure to drop all of your views, thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. But beyond that, subscribe if you're yet to, hit the bell along the way, and my social media accounts and Discord are linked below, as well as the Nawtystep Patreon page. All in the description, go and check it all out. But yeah, keep it naughty. If it's naughty, then you know, and I shall see all of you legends in the next one. Peace!